Hello world, hello world, hello world, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Little Bit Different podcast with your host Corey Sterling. What's up, what's up? I hope this finds you well wherever you may be in the world, sending you lots of love. If you're on a beach, if you're in the car, if you're in a park, if you're lying in bed, wherever you are, it's such a pleasure to be sharing my stories and experiences with you. This week's episode has been in the making for 364 days. Yes, that is correct. 1 year ago today, I said that I was going to go 1 year without smoking weed or ingesting cannabis, and that day has arrived. It's a little bit anticlimactic, to be honest, and I guess the way I'm celebrating it is by recording a podcast about it. Maybe this is what life is like when you're 38 years old. It's been a crazy transformation for me, and I want to share and open up a little bit about my experiences with weed and dependency and addiction and what I've learned going a year without smoking weed. Talked a little bit about my relationship with alcohol, which was, a much younger version of myself, loved partying, loved drinking, associated alcohol with all sorts of activities and fun. And I've just been able, as I continue to evolve into the person who I'm becoming and who I want to become, it was very, very easy for me to get rid of alcohol. I mean, at the beginning, there was a transition that was difficult, but I've been able to do it, and now I'm just way past it, where I never ever think about it and it never comes to my mind. Weed, on the other hand, is something a little bit different for me because, firstly, I don't like alcohol. I'm never I just miss that taste of a chilled gin and tonic or a vodka and soda. Those are the things I drink. I actually do like Guinness, but not enough that I miss it. Whereas weed, I really, really, really enjoyed smoking weed, and I love smoking weed. And the other thing I have to say before I get into what this year has been like without smoking weed is that really, really, really good things happen to me when I smoke weed. It's not, I know some people will talk about they get nervous, they get anxious, they get paranoid, they get this. None of those things happen for me. All that happens for me is I listen to awesome music at sunset and I see the universe in a clearer way. And I never, of all the times that I've smoked weed in my life, less than 5% of the time was during the day. It's always, for me, it's always with sunset, and then at night times I would. But that being said, there was a point that came to my life last year when I realized that I had to stop. So why did I have to stop? The reason why I had to stop smoking weed, and I made a promise to myself to take a year off from smoking weed, was because I had gotten to the first point in my life where I had lost control of the situation. And when I say lost control of the situation, I mean that I was unable to say to myself, Corey, don't smoke weed today, and then be able to follow through with that. One of my coaches and mentors, Bob Proctor, always said, discipline is the ability to give yourself a command and follow it. And discipline's a really, really big part of my life with what I try to do intellectually, spiritually, physically, mentally, as an entrepreneur, as a deliberate creator, all the different things that I do. Hello, world. This is Corey from the Little Bit Different podcast. I'm going to tell you a statistic now. You're not going to believe it. Only 22% of people who listen to the Little Bit Different podcast actually subscribe or like the channel. So right now, I'm on a mission to get 250 subscribers to the channel by the end of the year. Will you help me? I'm hoping that the answer is yes. So please, anytime you watch any of our content, subscribe, hit subscribe, that whole button there, and like it and share it and keep being different and having the most fun ever. And this was the first time in my life that I had a relationship with a substance that I actually was not able to stop. And the way that happened was I started by saying, okay, Corey, maybe obviously I love smoking weed. So what I'm going to do is I'm only going to allow myself to smoke on the weekend. And then smoking on the weekend soon became, okay, Friday night and Sunday night. So now that's Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night. And then it was like, from there I was like, yeah, but like also Tuesday is reggae night in Jericoacoara, so has to be Tuesday also. And then I was like, but then Thursday's the night before Friday, so I have to do it, right? I'm sure you can see where this is going. This is the logic of an addict or someone with a dependency relationship on a substance. And I can tell you, it was no longer than 10 days, but I went through 10 days of being like, today I'm not going to smoke weed. And I would smoke weed. There was a point where I stopped, where I was like, cool, I don't want to keep doing this. And I don't like that I've lost control of the situation. And I need to take some drastic action. Part of the strength that I had to be able to stop came from how I had stopped alcohol. Because I realized, like, with alcohol, it was when I was like getting off of alcohol, it was sort of the same thing. So I'd be like, oh, only on the weekend, or only this, or only that. And I realized, okay, the way that I work, Corey work, is I have to go full stop. So I stopped the whole way. A couple of the other considerations of why I decided to stop is that, and I have to say this also, when I decided to stop last year, things were going awesome for me. Things were going very, very, very well. My business was doing the best it had ever done. Physically, I was in great shape. I was exercising twice a day. I was eating super healthy. And I had wonderful relationships in my life, both friendships and everything. And it got to a point for me where it was just like, weed was just very ingrained with things that I would do. And I found myself smoking weed in situations where I would never, ever otherwise smoke weed. As an example, I was on a trip in Uruguay and I met my parents there. I was 37 at the time. I went for dinner with my parents in Montevideo and I smoked a joint like half an hour before having dinner with my parents. What I will say is, it was a beautiful dinner. I was like actually so present to the love that I have with my parents, and it was so nice, but also I was like, this isn't cool and this isn't who I want to be. So again, this for me, it's with weed, it's always this back and forth of like, it's something that really softens me, slows me down, makes me lighter, makes me more compassionate, makes me more understanding, but also like, cool, these are all good things and those are healthy, but as long as it's in moderation. And it wasn't in moderation at that time. So following what I learned from alcohol, I decided like, okay, I'm going 1 year without smoking weed. And another one of the reasons why I decided to do this is like, I realized that I had an addiction and that I had lost control of the situation. Again, I'm not hurting anyone. I'm not throwing all of my money. It's not like I'm going into the wrong part of town at night and putting myself in danger. None of that was happening. But for me, mentally, it was very distressing to realize that I was not in control of the situation. I don't know if that resonates with anyone. So firstly, I realized that I was an addict and that I had to take some form of action around it. The other thing was, at this point in my life, I was thinking a lot about the sort of partner that I wanted to have and who I wanted to attract in my life. And I remember very, very clearly thinking, like, I think in some, based on the law of attraction, in some ways, like you're going to attract a person who sort of meets you where you are. That's one of the concepts, or just one of the ideas about it, which I believe in. And I remember just thinking to myself, I was like, would I want to meet an awesome girl who smokes weed every day and who's not able to control her intake of a substance, whether it's cigarettes, whether it's weed, whether it's alcohol, whether it's something different? And I was like, no, I wouldn't be into that girl. I wouldn't want to date that girl. And then I thought, well, if I wouldn't want to date that girl, why would a girl want to date me if I'm unable to be, if I'm that version of a person? And it was a really, really strong piece for me, where I was like, I want to attract an awesome woman in my life. And I don't think that this version of me is going to attract the best or, software update version of who I really want to attract, and someone who I'd want to build a relationship with and build a life with. So these were all of sort of the building blocks. When I had started, I will say that in this process, it's been pretty stable, but the first 30 days were the most difficult. The first 30 days were very, very difficult because You're just used to doing something. Like I was very used to having a productive day, kite surfing, watching the sunset, then maybe smoking a joint with my friends in the car, or like coming home, smoking a joint, going to the park, eating dinner, listening to music, watching the stars, going to sleep. Or like on the weekends, getting a group of friends together, rolling some joints, going in a car, getting to Jerry, and then just have fun wandering around Jerry or going to a party and smoking joints with my friends. And so it was very, very difficult. The first 30 days were so difficult because that's when you're breaking a habit. That's when you're just conditioned and you're used to, and like I know this and I talk about it a lot of the times, human beings crave comfort and human beings crave routine. And so for me, that when that was taken away, the first 30 days were really, really difficult. What I found that was really helpful for me, and I'm happy to share this with everyone, is like I was doing it at the same time with a friend. So she was quitting cigarettes. Her name is Laura. She's Belgian. She was visiting me in Brazil. We did an awesome road trip together. And on the road trip, I got out of my normal routine, normal environment. When we left for the road trip, I was like, okay, 1 year starts today. And she and I were supporting each other. She was stopping to smoke cigarettes. I was stopping to smoke weed. And we listened to Alan Carr's books. We were doing a road trip. We listened to The Easy Way to Stop Smoking Cigarettes and The Easy Way to Stop Smoking Cannabis. And like Alan Carr Easy Way books have stopped me from drinking alcohol and from smoking cannabis. So I don't know what the hell is in those books, but like every time I've listened to them, it always works, which is magic. But I have to say that at the start, working with a friend made it really easier, and we made each other a deal. The deal was that if I went 365 days without smoking weed, she was going to invite me to Ibiza and we were going to do a trip together, and that if she made it 365 days without smoking tobacco, that I was going to invite her to Uruguay and we were going to have a trip in Uruguay together. That being said, she and I are not in touch any longer, so I don't think I get to cash in on my trip to Ibiza, but the reward that I have is much better anyways. So firstly, very, very clear that the first 30 days were most difficult, and what really helped me a lot in those first days was having Laura and my accountability partner, and just someone who at the end of the day, however difficult it might have been, I would just shoot her a text like, hey Laura, I made it another day, day 5, day 6. I always talk about self-image and the importance of self-image psychology and Dr. Maxwell Maltz and all the study and the reading I've done about self-image psychology. Every morning I wake up and I have a list of items that I write, like Corey self-image, August 2024, Corey self-image, September 2024. And once the day that I decided I was going to go a year, the first thing I put in my self-image is, I am the type of person for whom it is very easy, light, and fun to go 365 days without smoking cannabis. And I still read it every morning, and that really just seeped into my psyche where I was like, yeah, it's actually, this is easy and fun to be able to do it. Now, after 30 days, what I realized how much I myself am a creature of habit and comfort and routine. Because when I was in the habit of smoking weed, I couldn't see myself not smoking weed. I was like, I actually couldn't see it I couldn't see how it was possible. I was just like, I don't think I'm ever going to stop. Like, I'm just always going to do it. And then I found a way to stop, as I've explained. And then the craziest thing is when I stopped and I started reinforcing the self-image and I was listening to Alan Carr, Easy Way to Stop Smoking Cannabis, I couldn't see myself starting again. And that was wild. I just realized that how I'm not really attached to smoking weed or not smoking weed, I'm just attached to doing the same things over and over again. And it was actually mind-blowing. I was like, what is this? Like, how come I can't see myself ever doing this again? And yeah, and it happened. I was like, oh, I guess I can't because I'm doing all of these beliefs and mindset work to reinforce it. And yeah, and it was really big. And that was like a major, major shift in my process of realizing that like so much of our behaviors are habitual, and that like I don't even think that we as individuals care about what our subconscious system doesn't care what habits we set in place. Our subconscious system is just going to seek comfort and regularity. That was like a massive thing when I uncovered that. Obviously, as one could imagine, there were a lot of gradual changes that took place by not smoking weed. And I would say like the biggest effect was a serious decline in my drive for social interactions and experiences. So the amount of times that I've gone out in this year of being sober, and the exceptions of the times that I haven't been sober, I had my ayahuasca medicine ceremony, which was one night. During this time, I took mushrooms. I've taken mushrooms maybe twice in this year. So otherwise, like, I'm completely sober every day, all the time, fully present in my reality. Socially, going out on a Tuesday, going out on a Thursday, even going out on Friday, like on the weekends, like, I just care so much less about that. And in some ways I miss it, because it's like, it's a lot of fun, right? Like when I talk about stopping drinking, the first thing you have to realize, like, it's going to be different fun when you're going out and you're drinking versus when you're not. And also when I stopped smoking weed, I would go out and I would just be a little bit bored. I was like, okay, I don't really get what's going on here. I would say since then I've gotten really, really good at going out completely sober. And I feel very grateful to have kicked this crutch, because in my process, it was like alcohol was the thing. Then I kicked alcohol, and then I relied on weed socially. And then I was able to kick out weed, and now it's just like I just go out with my friends, and I don't drink, and I don't smoke, and nothing, and I just am with them, and I can stay with them until 5 a.m. and have a lot of fun and meet lots of people. But I will say that the frequency of my desire to do this is significantly diminished, because I'm sort of just like, oh, like 9:30, I'm good. I'm happy to call it. And so it's just one thing I noticed was socially, the significant change that took place in terms of like being much less keen or driven. From a health perspective, and I want to talk about like the results that I got from the year in a moment, but from a health perspective, like if I add up in that 365 days how many joints I probably would have smoked, I would vomit. I would vomit at the sheer volume of how much smoke I would be in taking. And so I think from a health perspective, it was an incredible decision. And and really, really healthy to stop that and to moderate it and to fix it. And also, like the other thing, I'm sure that weed affects people in a lot of different ways. Again, I would only smoke weed in situations where I wasn't advising anyone, I wasn't doing anything related to work, if only brainstorming or daydreaming, which a lot of good ideas have come up from being in that space. But yeah, like intellectually, probably I'm a lot better off not having smoked weed over the past year. And then also, most importantly for me, waking up. Like I always felt that when I would get weed hangovers, where like the first 15, 20 minutes in the morning would be completely different when I would smoke weed versus when I wouldn't, like groggy and slow. And I always felt like there was like a super weight on my head, and it would really take me like 15 minutes to totally get with it. Whereas now it's like I'm up and I'm with it. So from a health perspective, it's been really beneficial. First was regaining control in an area of my life, which is, it's impossible to put a price tag on that and how much it means to me to realize like, oh, there's a moment where I wasn't in control and I was able to regain control and to find a way to be disciplined once again. I think that's something that was really, really important for me. I mentioned a little bit about the health in the sense of like not smoking and being fresher in the mornings, but also something that's really cool. This was the first year of my life that I've been able to consistently maintain 10% body fat. And you can take a guess if you want to. Part of the reason why I've been able to do that is because I've not had the munchies. So the munchies are, at least for me, I'm a little peanut butter granola monster. And sometimes I would be stoned and I could just eat everything. My cousin Jason Sterling, such a sweet little boy. I mean, now we're all grown up. But when we were young, we were like somewhere going out for a family dinner, a bunch of cousins, and he said, "I want to eat the whole buffet." And it was such a cute line, and we always joked about it. But sort of for me, when if I'm stoned, I can eat all of it, and obviously that makes an impact on your body and calorie consumption. So I was really, really proud. Being 10% body fat was something that I'd wanted to achieve for a really, really long time, and I've been able to consistently maintain it because I've gone all of this time without having the munchies, which maybe you can laugh, but like if you're smoking 3 or 4 times a week and you have the munchies, it's definitely going to affect you. So those were some of the benefits as well. I think being really, really focused on certain projects, probably like there's no way to beat around the bush that I would imagine that like smoking every day takes a toll on productivity. I think if you're already highly productive, maybe a little bit less. But for me, I've been really focused on a lot of business projects and just trying to be better and do things better and have a particular lifestyle and do things that I think that obviously just being sober all the time really, really benefits me and helps me. So financially doesn't really play a part for me, but ultimately it was a really, really good thing, and I think what I took from it, like one of the other benefits that is really worth mentioning is just that I realized that I can constantly reinvent myself, that I always get to choose who I want to be, and that something so deeply ingrained as smoking weed consistently for a year and a half. I wasn't smoking every day for a year and a half, but but from 2022 to 2023 was my highest weed consumption in my life, and just realizing like, oh, I can just press a button if I decide and stop, and this is not who I am, and instead I really want to be this person or this version or show up in this way or to do these things, and that was really, really powerful. Those are all of the positive aspects. There is one drawback that has affected me as a result of going 1 year without smoking weed, and that is that I did not visit Jamaica, man. Yeah, man, didn't get down to the island for the island time. Everything I read, brother. I would not, as long as I'm not smoking weed, I don't think I can visit Jamaica. Like, it just won't happen. I had a couple of really good opportunities this year with some friends to go down to Jamaica, man. And I love Jamaica. Jamaica is one of my happy places on this earth, but I didn't go. I was like, sorry, I'm not putting myself in that situation, because I knew that if I went to Jamaica, I would be smoking weed with my friends. So that was basically the major drawback from a year of not smoking weed. And I think there's 2 things that I just want to share sort of in wrapping up a little bit about this experience and putting it to a close. I think one is, and this is also really important to share, that when I decided to stop smoking and go a year without smoking weed, I asked the universe for 4 things. I was like, hey, universe, cool, so I'm doing this thing, and I'm going to do it, and I'm going to stick with it, and it would be awesome if you could bring me these 4 things. And I can tell you that all of those 4 things were brought to me. So that's pretty insane. That's pretty insane. And I think that just speaks to the power of intention and doing something that's difficult and that's challenging and that might be out of your comfort zone, but doing it in a way where you're like, okay, cool, I'm gonna level up as a person and do something that puts me out of my comfort zone. And in exchange, it would be awesome if you hook me up with this. I won't say too much about what those 4 things are because they're personal, but I will share that one of them was starting a podcast. And I don't know what week we're at, but I'd wanted to do for a really, really long time. And it happened during this year. And so I'm really, really grateful and appreciative for that. And that's one of those things. But it's like when things like that happen for me, that's really proof of God and proof of source energy listening and giving us things. And so for me, that really, really empowers me to want to take bigger challenges and bigger jumps in my life, and also do so intentionally. And I think that the last thing that I'll share, looking at my life now versus looking at my life a year ago, and ultimately deciding, like, was this a good decision? Was this the right decision for me? And if I look at my life now, financially, by far, I'm in the best position I've ever been in. Spiritually, I feel like I have the closest connection with Source that I've ever had. Socially, I feel as comfortable with myself as I've ever felt. With my family, I feel like I have the best relationship with my family that I've had, and continuing to work on it. My physical health is at a consistently unprecedented level for me in my life. And it's sort of like when you just look at the proof of what's happened in your life after you made a significant, uncomfortable decision, and it's so overwhelmingly positive, you realize, like, oh, this was a good thing for me. This was obviously a very, very, very important, good decision. And what I love about it is that it's a decision that I chose to take, and a decision that was difficult for me, but it's like, who knows, right? Hypothetically, maybe those 4 things I wanted, I would have gotten anyways. And maybe I would have found a way to keep 10% body fat, or whatever else it is that I wanted to do. But I only know the experience by virtue of how it happened. And yeah, it's mega powerful for me when I've been reflecting on this process to just realize that, and realize, like, okay, well, I made this decision, and look at how much I've improved in so many of these areas of my life, that it was obviously the right decision to make. And this leads us to the $1 million question. And that is, is a return to smoking weed inevitable? And I can say confidently the answer is yes. When it comes to alcohol, like, it's entirely possible in my life. I would say likely that I'll never, ever have a sip of alcohol again. I want to give a shout out to my cousin Jeff Glotman, who's also one of my mentors, who was like one of the first. He's super successful guy. Now he's a grandfather. He's such a successful entrepreneur. He's an athlete. He's raised the most perfect kids. He's just like, he's the man. And he was like the first person I really met who just like never drank alcohol, doesn't drink alcohol, never drinks alcohol. And he sort of showed me a way, even though that was never his intent, because when I met him, I was drinking a lot. But like alcohol, I don't miss, I don't need. I'll get married. The night of my marriage, I don't need to drink alcohol. Like the night I get married, I don't need to drink alcohol. I'm really, really happy to go the rest of my life without any of it. Weed is a good thing for me. It's a good thing for me. It makes me feel really good. I've had some of the best experiences of my life have been when I've been smoking weed. I met Bono. I met Esther Hicks, who's my teacher. I've seen so many sunsets. I've danced so much Radiohead. Like, it's just a good thing for me. So it will be back, and I think it'll be a very personal decision to figure out how I reintroduce it. And what I can say with certainty is that if I reintroduce it and I feel like there's a moment where I lose control, then I'll just go another year without it. But that being said, for me, it's a blessing. It's not a curse. It's a wonderful thing. And again, if I didn't have these substance abuse issues, it wouldn't be a problem, and I wouldn't be sitting here and recording this. But it was an area of my life that I realized, like, hey, I've lost control of this, so I need to totally stop and recalibrate. And so, yeah, that's a little bit about my story with weed and going 1 year without smoking weed. I hope that this has been helpful in some ways, and that you've enjoyed it, and that maybe you found it entertaining, and there's something that you can draw on it. At the end of the day, we're the ones who decide our lives. We decide the direction that our lives go in. We're the only ones who know what is a good thing for us and what is a bad thing for us. And I'm just another human being going through that process and sharing about my experiences in the hope that maybe it will inspire one person in a positive way. So, whatever you do, stay different. Big love. Peace.
Video.